Alrighty then, chat room. I ask you a simple question. Did you get hit? Relatively recently, Guilty Gear Strive got its newest DLC character, being Elphelt. Elphelt's a pretty fun character, I like playing her quite a bit, but she has a slightly gimmicky moveset relying mostly on her Rekka series. If you don't know, a Rekka series is a type of special move where you can do consecutive inputs in order to get more moves out of it. These moves tend to be split into 3 different parts, however, there can be more or less, or there can be funky ways to move around a Rekka. In this case, Elphelt technically has a 3-sequence Rekka, with a starter that is safe on block, a middle bit, which is a high-low mix-up, and an ender, which is safe on block. However, she is able to move around the Rekka series in weird ways, going from the opener to one of the mix-ups, then either to another one of the mix-ups, or the ender, or back to the opener, where she can then choose to go to another mix-up, back to the opener, another mix-up, back to the opener. You can see why people hate this character. This Rekka is pretty strong if you don't know how to deal with it. There's a lot of different ways to deal with it. You can DP out of the mix-up, you can 6P out of the reset. You know, there's a lot of different things you can do. You can just deflect shield to get out of it. There's a lot of different ways you can go about it. Obviously, Elphelt also has ways to deal with these. She can bait DPs by just not doing anything after the starter, since it's like -2 on block. And she's also able to do a Kara super off of one of the mix-ups, just in case you DP. But that's just fighting games 101 at this point.
Oh no, there's options to be the options that I'm looking at, and there's options that be those options that would have lost to another option. Oh, fuck.
But if you just straight up choose to block the mix-ups, then yeah, the Rekka's pretty strong. A 50-50 high-low mix-up that you can't fuzzy block and is unreactable. That was the statement that I made when Elphelt first came out, and it turned out I was wrong. You can fuzzy block the mix. Technically, if you crouch while the overhead is coming out, it's around 14 frames because the first shot misses and it takes 2 frames for the second shot to come out. So you can fuzzy it in a 2-frame window. But that's not the point of the video. Some people in the comment section took offense to the fact that I said that 14 frames was unreactable. Now, there wasn't exactly a lot of debate about this, there was only a couple of comments, but the one that really hit me was this one followed by the one right before it. Why does the video maker keep saying 14 frames isn't reactable? Isn't that just shy of 1/4 of a second? Which is about human reaction speed if you're a gamer? I'd say someone who trains and has godlike reactions could react twice that fast. I'm not saying it's easy to react to 14 frames, but still, I wish people would stop saying the amount of time is unreactable. Of course, this was immediately followed by a comment saying, please make Rekka 20 frames, I can't deal with this shit. So basically, who fucking knows? So this got me thinking, genuinely, at what point does a move become unreactable? What is the fastest move that somebody can react to? But first I gotta go make some food. This video is sponsored by HelloFresh. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, and you can get a discount using my code in the description. It's no secret that I am a very busy man, meaning that I find very little time in my life to cook good food or eat anything extremely healthy. But thanks to HelloFresh, I'm able to get high-quality meals with fresh ingredients that are delivered directly to my door on days and times that are convenient for me. I have a question. Do you like free food? Well, if you sign up right now, you will get a free breakfast for life with your subscription. They say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and it's one that I always end up skipping out on. So getting a free breakfast with every box while you're subscribed is a massive bonus, and a delicious one at that. Plus, if you're looking to eat healthier, HelloFresh has 30+ calorie smart and protein smart recipes for you that you can choose each week. All you have to do is follow their recipes using their fresh ingredients that they send you, and enjoy a healthy and delicious meal of your choice. So what are you waiting for? Go to the link in the description, use code POGGECKO3 to get your free breakfast, and enjoy a amazing array of HelloFresh meals. Thank you, HelloFresh, for the sponsor. Now let's get back to the video. Alright then. So, let's talk about reaction times. Human reaction time is something that we have, quite frankly, put a bit too much time into researching. We could have been spending our time fighting for things that mattered or figuring out how not to boil the planet alive, but instead, we decided to figure out who can catch the ruler the fastest. There are a bunch of different tests to figure out your reaction time, but the most common one is known as the ruler test, which we're not getting into, just look it up. But the one that we're going to be using in this video is from humanbenchmark.com. Basically, the way that the test works is that you click on the screen and you wait it to flash green. When it flashes green, you click the button and it will tell you how fast you clicked it. This is a really easy way to figure out your visual reaction time, and, well, it's a nice and handy tool, so that's why we're going to use it. But I do have to state now that visual reaction time and audio reaction time are different. In a comprehensive study of visual and auditory reaction times on the basis of gender and physical activity levels of medical first-year students, that's a long title, by Aditya Jain, Ramta Bansal, Avnish Kumar, and KD Sain, I'm sorry if I butchered those names, they measured the visual reaction time of students with a test similar to the human benchmark one, and a audio reaction time by having a beep play and the students pressing a spacebar in order to register that they reacted to the sound. The experiment tracks a lot of different things, and unfortunately, it doesn't give me the full dataset, so I'm gonna have to work with a couple of averages and means. But it does give us a basis for the difference between audio reaction time and visual reaction time. The mean visual reaction time was 247, with a variance of 18.54. And the mean audio reaction time is 228.01, with a variance of 16.49. As you can see, audio reaction time is not only faster, but it has less variance in the final result. But why is that? I don't know, this video is about the funny rock girl from Guilty Gear and her overhead. Do you really think I have the time to go in between the differences of visual reaction time and audio reaction time? So now that we have these data points, it's time that we do some terrible science. According to this data, we can say that the audio reaction time is around 92% of the visual reaction time. I know all mathematicians and scientists probably just cringed and screamed and shit their pants hearing me say that, but again, this is a video on the funny rock lady from Guilty Gear. The sample size from that study was around 120 people, which for a scientific paper is not that bad. But we can do better. Remember humanbenchmark.com? Well, they actually have a medium and an average data point for all of the data they've collected from the people that have used their site. Wanna know how many data points that is? 81 million data points! I'd be a fucking moron not to use this average. Not to mention, they did me a favor by giving me the average and the medium, like I said before. But they also actually plotted everything out on this nifty little chart that they made. This is one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my life. Like, I get it, haha, funny bell curve, but how am I supposed to glean anything from this graph? Looking at this, you'd imagine that the average reaction speed was around 200 milliseconds, right? No, fuck you! The median is 273, and the average is 284! So what the fuck is the point of this spike? What is this graph peaking to? Two? Fucking two people? I don't know! This is the worst scientific graph I've ever fucking seen! I've calmed down. So now we have the average human reaction time of 284 milliseconds. Kinda. The website has a section talking about how they've seen that reaction times have actually gotten slower over the years. However, they chalk this up to the change in technology over the past few years. A lot of people are doing the test on hardware that is doing a lot of stuff in the background, meaning that there's more and more delay added to their actual result. Personally, I think this is a little bit cope, but whatever. Because of this, I'm going to take off their recommended 30 milliseconds of reaction time. This takes the average down to a nice round 254 milliseconds. 254 milliseconds actually correlates pretty nicely with the results that I found in the study, meaning that this is probably a pretty accurate result. So now we can use this average reaction time to figure out if the average person will be able to react to Elphelt's overhead. But I'm sure that there's a burning question in your mind. Gecko, can you react to it. In order to flex on everybody and to test this method, I decided that I was going to get some results for myself based off of the human reaction test. I wanted to see if my results actually correlated, so if I got a number that, is less than Elphelt's overhead, see if I can actually react to it. And if it's over, see if I can't react to it. Pretty simple stuff. The way that I tested this was that I did the human reaction test 10 times and averaged out the scores. Here are the results of the human reaction test, and this is my average result. 224.5 milliseconds. I'm not going to be removing 30 milliseconds from this because I know that my setup has minimal lag. It's also to be noted that I did this reaction test before I had my regular dose of caffeine, so I decided to do it again after and actually managed to lower my score. Here are the results, and as you can see, I got an average reaction time of 191.8 milliseconds. So now that we have the two results, I might actually be able to use one of these to figure out if I can react to Elphelt's overhead. So with all the science shit out of the way, how about we actually finally get onto the fighting game side of things? For those of you who don't know, the vast majority of fighting games run at a locked 60 frames per second. This is because developers actually tie the frame rate to the moves that come out, meaning that the physics of the game are kinda tied to the frame rate. While some people might see this and cry bloody murder because it means they can't play their game at 2 million FPS, this actually helps out fighting game nerds like me a lot, as we're able to create things known as frame data. Frame data are basically the building blocks that every fighting game move uses. And they're also the things that nerds like me talk about non-stop. And you're probably sick of hearing about them at this point, let's be honest. Fighting game moves can be split into 3 different sections. You have the startup frames, the frames before the actual move comes out, the active frames, the frames where you are able to be hit by the move, and the recovery frames, the frames that have to happen before your character can do anything else. Frame data is something that we've talked about a lot on this channel and has helped us out a lot in the past. However, it is something that has only really become really well known in the past few years. Real talk, I don't know how old head fighting game players used to figure things out without frame data. Like, it's all people in the Strive community talk about this. If I have to hear a move is bad because it is negative something on block again, I'm gonna fucking love someone. Hate modern fighting game discourse. Let's go back to when people were going off of vibes. So, using the results that we've gotten, we're able to figure out the minimum amount of frames that the average person needs in order to react to a move. The only thing that we need to worry about in this video are startup frames. As I said before, startup frames are the amount of frames that it takes for a move to come out and become active. With the knowledge of startup frames, we are able to figure out how fast a move can be before the average person will be able to react to it. Since there are 60 frames in a second, this means that one frame takes about 16.6 recurring milliseconds in order to come out. If we take our human average reaction time of 254 milliseconds, that means we get a whopping reaction time of 15.24 frames. Rounding that up, because you're not going to react halfway through a frame, are you? We get around 16 frames. So let's circle all the way back to the start and talk about Elphelt's record overhead. Is this move reactable to the average person? Well, the frame data on the move says that it comes out in 14 frames. However, if you block it crouching, it actually takes 16 frames. However, I would still say that just because the numbers are the same doesn't mean the average person can react to this overhead. Which kinda sucks. But that doesn't mean that the move isn't entirely unreactable. Remember earlier when we did the test to figure out if, I'd be able to react to it? That wasn't for me to stroke my own ego and give myself the narcissistic boost that I need to get myself through the day. You should totally subscribe, by the way. If you don't know, I am a alright Guilty Gear player. I'm okay. I've got a couple achievements under my belt. Nothing like major, but no, I'm decent. I'm alright. I'm pretty good. I mean, if you really push to shove, you're really gonna say that. I'm pretty good. I'm alright. I'm pretty good. So as a once pretty decent, arguably washed up player, I wanted to figure out if it was possible for me to react to the overhead. And it's not like I could ask any pro players to do it. I haven't exactly burnt bridges, but I I got social anxiety, bro. I don't know how to approach people. My base reaction time was 224.5 milliseconds, which leaves us just under 14 frames, which I don't like my odds. So I decided to take my caffeinated time of 191.8 milliseconds, meaning I should have a reaction time of around 12 frames. 2 frames more than I need to actually beat the move. So I decided to test this out. I went into training mode and got the Elphelt bot to jump, do the start of the wrecker, and then do the overhead or do the low. I did this for 3 minutes straight with a 1 minute warm-up in order to make sure that I was physically ready. And these are the results. Out of the 58 attempts that I managed to squeeze into the 3-minute segments, I managed to block exactly 32 times. This gave me a success rate of about 55%. Which sounds pretty decent until you consider the fact that if I literally guessed on every single one, I should have about a 50% success ratio. So, not looking good for old Gecko Squirrel. The most amount of times that I blocked correctly in a sequence was 6 successful blocks in a row right at the end. Now, I don't know exactly how to scientifically quantify this, but there was something about it that felt reactable, if that makes sense. But still, this situation is in a vacuum, with only 2 options that Elphelt can do. This is also me just choosing an option like block overhead or block low. I'm not choosing an option like do a reversal or try to bait a throw. I'm very much doing something which only requires minimal movement. In my mind, this question is kind of flawed because, yes, technically the move is reactable, but there's more going on than that. Right now, we're talking about the move in a vacuum. What happens if we actually put more options on top of that? Remember at the start when I said that the first hit of Wrecker was safe? Well, since it's only around -2, Elphelt can kind of do whatever she wants after it if she's conditioned you to block. Meaning she can run up throw, which is another option that you have to think about. She is also able to reset the Wrecker at any point as long as she doesn't do an ender. Meaning that's something else that you have to worry about because you have to 6p it. And of course, since this is Guilty Gear, if she has the meter, even if you do end up blocking the mix-up, she's able to just yoop. Because of that, when you block the first hit of Wrecker, you can't just entirely rely on blocking the mix-up. You have to actively look for the other options. This increases the amount of things that you have to look for and focus on, which makes it a lot harder to deal with. We call this concept the mental stack. Imagine each thing that a fighting game character can do is a slab. Each slab is stacked on top of each other and has a chance to slip out and hit you on your head. I'm not sure if you've ever been hit by anything that's concrete, but it's gonna hurt if it hits you, so you don't want that to happen. Your job is to make sure that nothing falls out of your opponent's stack and hits you, while making sure that your stack is as high as possible. If you have a small stack of things to focus on, it's generally a lot easier to make sure that none of them slip. However, the bigger that the stack gets, the harder it is to see which thing is going to slip out and hit. This is why learning ways to shut down your opponent really easily is extremely important in any fighting game. Knowing your options against a character greatly decreases their mental stack. And that's why you should look at a character, see what they do, and take that shit to the lab! But no matter what you do, there's always a chance that you're going to have to deal with more than just a mix-up. And the more things you have to worry about, the harder it is to see that overhead coming. But still, does this mean that Elphelt's overhead is reactable or not? At what point can we say that a move is no longer reactable? Are you going to finish eating that? Because it looks very nice, and I'm kind of hungry. Well, no, you can't have it. It's mine, but you can go to HelloFresh to get your own one. But unfortunately, I believe that fighting game reactable moves aren't simply black and white. There is no specific frame cutoff where a move is 100% reactable or 100% not reactable. So because of this, I made a scale! Now, this isn't perfect because I'm an idiot, and I'm sure somebody could probably make a better version of this, and I urge you to, if anybody has more experience in this field, please do. But this is a general baseline of what I believe is and isn't reactable. So let's start out pretty simple. If there's a move that is less than 10 frames, then let's be real, you're probably not reacting to it. The fastest human reaction time is something that I had a bit of trouble finding, actually. So I'm pretty willing to say that if a move is less than 11 frames, then let's be honest, you're not reacting to that shit. oh, but my reaction time is godlike. I can react to... You're not that guy, bro. You're not that guy. Once we get past the 10 frame mark, we get into the in theory or in a vacuum area of the scale. These are moves where, with enough training, you might be able to react to them, but kind of depends on the circumstance. If the move has a very specific audio sound right at the start of it, then yeah, maybe if it's 10 frames, you might be able to react to it. But not only do you need sharp enough senses, you need to know what you're looking out for, and you need to hope that the developers have actually made it so that you can see the differences. One of the only reasons I was able to actually block Elphelt's overhead in training mode is because frame 1, when she does the overhead, she pulls a gun out above her head. If it was to, I don't know, take her 2-3 frames to put the gun above you, I probably wouldn't have been able to react to it. Once we get past 17 frames, we are in the average reaction time zone. This is based off of the data that we used before off of the average human reaction time, meaning that moves past this point can generally be considered to be easily blockable by the average person. Well, okay, not easily blockable, but blockable. Now, I don't want any of you to point at this video and go, see? This is proof that this move is reactable, and if you can't beat it, you're trash! You're trash! Because we've already kind of discussed that that's not how fighting games work. Not to mention that some moves are naturally harder to react to than others. Like I said with the Elphelt move, it's a lot easier to react to it because a gun comes out frame 1. If Elphelt didn't have this difference in animation, this would probably be an unreactable move. It's true that sometimes some fighting game moves straight up aren't reactable. Shout out TKO Sansen. But there are some moves that are always going to be in this weird gray zone. Technically, you can react to Elphelt's overhead, but you're probably not going to be able to do it consistently in a real match if the Elphelt player knows what they're doing. Instead of debating and figuring out if a move is reactable or isn't, a lot of the time, it's better to just find a common solution to the problem in order to get out of it. Fighting games always have multiple options to deal with any scenario, all with their upsides and downsides. So it's on you to go out there, find things in fighting games that you don't know how to deal with, and find the solution. Trust me, when you figure out how to beat a character, it feels much, much better than constantly bashing your head against the wall. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you all had a good time. I hope you enjoy the format. This isn't going to be a permanent format change. This is just something I wanted to try out. I will be streaming right now on Twitch. We'll be doing some Guilty Gear Strive gaming. Should be a good time. I haven't been on Twitch for like 2, nearly 3 weeks at this point. So it's going to be nice to catch back up with everyone. If you want to support me and my endeavors in the future, I have a Patreon that you can go and sub to right now. I'm trying to find more ways to integrate Patreon into my content and figure out more rewards to actually give them. So hopefully there'll be more stuff coming up on there pretty soon. As always, a very special thanks to Almost Nap Time, Antifeast06, Ben from Canada, Savantus de Leon, Daniel Wiedericht, Edison Luttery, Fexo, Games.png, I Am Naoto, MP04, Mr. Clean, Ray W, Sergeant Cubby, Super, Forcon, Tom Tanks, Velvet Poppy, Voltage Charge, and Zandatsu for being Tier 2 patron supporters. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next week.